smartest country anywhere in the world. It's
Ladies
really
and gentlemen,
so I congratulate
Trump is
you.
just
It's a
wrapping
great
up, I
feeling,
think.
because
But
we
let's
were
have a
laughed
listen.
at for 4 years with this guy that should have never been president. So I'm tying homeland security into voter identification with picture and proof of citizenship in order to vote. And those two items are the most important thing having to do with homeland security. So it should be part of the Homeland Security bill. And I'm requesting that the Republican senators do that immediately. You don't have to take a fast vote. Don't worry about Easter going home. In fact, make this one for Jesus, okay? Make this one for Jesus. That's what I tell him. That's would be a damn good thing. The most important part of Homeland Security is voter ID and proof of citizenship. Nobody can vote on Homeland Security without voter ID or proof of citizenship. And you can't have Homeland Security without voter ID or proof of citizenship.
He was talking about Iran like a minute ago, so I'm hoping that they return to the Iran talk. But if not, if they're just talking about this, then we'll wrap it up really quickly. But let's have a listen.
A friend of mine, and he created from a sort of failed report at like Harvard or whatever. He did a business report, a concept he had, that was his thesis, a concept he had to build a company, and it was FedEx. So he gave this thing where he takes packages, he delivers them. Who the heck knows what he put down? Bottom line is they gave him a lousy mark. I don't know if they passed him or not, but they didn't give him a good mark. They say, this is the most ridiculous business plan we've ever seen. Fred, go back to the drawing board and try something else, because this won't work. Well, he decided to go for it, and he built FedEx, and it's an amazing story. And he was a very good friend of mine, but he would tell me that he didn't know what to do about Memphis. It was...
Okay. Little off topic right now. If he returns, ladies and gentlemen, anyone listening, please let me know. It's not off topic. I mean, he maybe these are issues that he has to cover, but specifically for markets, I care almost exclusively about the conversations about Iran. Oil right now. Wait, are they? Hold on a sec. Let me just see. Okay, no. Oil right now having a pretty wild day at the start. Trump ended up tweeting out that they are in talks with someone in Iran that they believe to be high up, but it's hard to judge if they are high up or not because many of the top leaders have been eliminated. So very hard to step in and even know who is, I guess, leading Iran or anything along these lines, or at least this is Trump's words. And then, they said they're going to have a 5-day ceasefire, or at least the United States is. There's already talks of Israel attacks and stuff like this, as well as a potential report of them saying to Israel that they have to wrap it up by, April 9th was the date, a little further out than 5 days, but still April 9th is when they're looking to potentially wind down the military effort. And eliminated was the term that he used. Okay, Micron. Everyone's talking about Micron right now, so why don't we just officially talk about Micron right now? The stock is taking a massive hit on, from what I can find, one news story, which could be absolutely huge. It does look very big. But SK Hynix, this is from a report that is being translated here, but that SK Hynix pulls forward a new plant to enter in, 2 months forward, that is going to have a new DRAM site, second clean room for M15X that they're going to enter in early. It's 20 trillion, whatever the South Korean currency that I can't remember the name of. Where is it? South Korean wons to US dollars, which essentially translates to about 13.3 US billion dollars. Okay. So huge investments. the thing that I find so interesting about, 2 months early doesn't even still mean all that much. Like the memory shortage is insanely tight right now. That a single acquisition, a single build out is not going to be enough. Micron is the third biggest player in the DRAM space behind SK Hynix and Samsung and these sort of names. All of those companies building out and trying to aggressively expand is still allowing Micron to guide next quarter at 81%. Now, the market is so forward looking that, they're not worried about what Micron is doing next quarter or the quarter after. They're worried about, okay, well, does the shortage end in 2027, 28, 29? Or is this something that we have to worry about into the, mid 30s? And that sort of makes sense. But every single chip step up that we have is, according to Micron, about a doubling in the DRAM demand. So not only are more chips being purchased at the highest levels, but it's more memory per chip at every stage of the way. Okay, so the demand curve is still extremely, extremely constrained, but people are just wondering, if the bigger names start to make these massive, very risky investments, does that hurt Micron? Does that change the pricing dynamics going forward? Does that change people's modeling? And it does, but by how much? That's the question you should be asking yourself if you're interested in Micron. Hello, Tanner. Do I buy SoFi or Grab? I don't know anything about Grab. You know what? Muddy Waters is something that we need to talk about. Let's go ahead and quickly watch that. Let me see what Trump's talking about right now. No, they're talking about borders and stuff like this. But Muddy Waters was actually on CNBC, and he talked about three things: China, AI, and then SoFi specifically. The China stuff we can maybe skip if you guys are interested in hearing their opinions. I actually thought it was like Carson was, I think, fair in his judgment. The second thing about AI, I also think was very prudent. And then the SoFi part, I thought was, I'll let you sort of see yourself. It's obviously hard to defend, but let's go ahead and have a listen together. We'll just watch the full thing.
Now, it's Carson Block, founder and CEO of Muddy Waters Research. I guess you don't trade by the hour, obviously, but
no.
And do you view conflicts as something that you look beyond? Because I want to talk to you about your, I want to get to SoFi, but first I want to talk to you about your overall view of the S&P based on AI. But does anything going on today with the Strait of Hormuz factor into your thinking about investment?
So I like to trade situations in which I feel like we have an edge. We have no edge in understanding this. As somebody who used to live in China, though, and I guess a China expert, I really hope that by the time this is over, we have significantly degraded Iran's capability to block the strait. Because if there ever is a conflict between China and Taiwan, if Iran can block the strait, China will have Iran do so to use that as a cudgel to keep us on the sidelines. So I do hope that by the time this is over.
Do you tie anything that the Trump administration has done in Venezuela and in Iran to a long game against China?
Well, certainly Venezuela seems to be a reassertion of the Monroe Doctrine.
Yep.
So, and it's also interesting because this is statecraft where rather than doing this traditionally and saying, okay, we're going to have meetings of lower level people and then maybe a summit, you're just saying, you know what? If you're not on board, you're gone.
Yeah.
And I suspect that works better in Venezuela than it does in a theocracy like Iran. But, that could actually really work well in Venezuela.
You were sanguine on the averages, the S&P overall, until recently. And I think you told someone you had a 180 based on, I guess, the long view of AI. If no one's got a job, then no one's going to be contributing to a 401k, no one's going to be buying stocks, and no one's going to be buying anything unless they're on UBI or something.
Well, yeah, I think there is a realistic case that AI can displace 15% of knowledge workers within a few years. Now, I didn't just pull that out of thin air. When you look at technology companies, the best users of AI within these companies have been able to replace 7 of their colleagues with just themselves and AI. Now, the current generation is substantially more powerful than the prior one, and it was coded by its predecessor. The current generation is coding its successors. So this is not a linear progression in capability. This is an exponential progression. So when you're going to have businesses that adopt AI in this way, that are going to be able to significantly underprice their competitors, it's going to force everybody to adopt. So if rather than going from 8 to 1, we say in the general economy, we're going from 7 to 6, that's 15%. And I mean, like lawyers, I think the junior associate job is gone. They are high earners. And by the way, like this is not why we started researching SoFi, but when I had this 180 in January after doing this research into using Claude and doing this research, it also occurs to me that SoFi is probably ground zero for this disruption because so many of its customers fit that high earner, not rich yet demographic that I think is going to be nailed by AI displacement.
I mean, that's been.
So he goes on to talk about his next case, but if this was his case, I would actually fully agree. Like, well, not fully agree that it's worth selling, but like I could see the bear argument of young white collar workers that are in professions is going to be one of the areas that people are talking up about being disrupted. Early software, junior software engineers, financial advisors, lawyers, accountants, on the young, not established, they don't have books of business. Like that's worrisome, because the ones that do have the reputation and the referrals and all of these will just be able to handle more customers. At least, like maybe that's not a forever situation, but in the short term, especially ones that are commission-based and stuff like this, they just won't be able to survive, So I agree with that. And if they did have outstanding student loans, personal loans, stuff like this, there will be pressures there. At least that's the potential narrative. Okay. What we're actually seeing is not as many cracks there as we are seeing in the buy now, pay later section and instant loans for names like Block, Chime, Affirm, and Klarna, where we actually have seen cracks in private credit there. And what's also funny about the private credit space is it's actually not all focused on consumer. A lot of the private credit cracks that we're seeing are also based in software names, which SoFi does not have any. They have a small amount of commercial loans, stuff like this. But I mean, the high majority is consumer personal loans, which is still up for debate. If that was his argument, I'd have no problems. The next part that he goes into is, I'll just let him talk and then have my thoughts after.
One of their selling points is that they have a younger, more tech savvy audience and consumer base.
Yeah, and look, we're not short SoFi right now because of that. Although
we are not short SoFi right now because of that. They do not. So he goes on to say that they do have a position that is betting on the downfall of SoFi, but they're not actually borrowing shares and selling them right now as a traditional short position. So although they said that in the article, it does actually seem like Carson did exactly what they said and what people had suspected that they had sold at the time of publication, which is what SoFi had also suspected as well. But then let's go hear what his actual position is.
we did buy a bunch of long-dated, deep out-of-the-money puts on it as part of our AI disruption thesis. So one thing that we are
long-dated, deep out-of-the-money puts that he bought on SoFi, meaning he could be calling for, with long duration, maybe months, maybe years, of under $10, under $8, potentially under $5. Like who knows how deep out of the money it is. But he's calling for a little bit of a disastrous case of personal lending. Now, the interesting thing is it's not just SoFi. There's a lot of personal loan lenders and credit companies here, but he has specifically taken this position out on SoFi. So this is why he has a personal problem with SoFi here.
What we're doing internally is we are positioning part of our book to take advantage of what could be a GFC type situation, because you
Global
overlay
financial crisis situation.
Yeah, because you overlaid AI disruption with what could be some real issues in private credit. I mean, the short answer there is nobody knows. But in the course of doing the work on SoFi, some of the practices that we've seen in securitization are really loose in terms of the documentation.
We need to go. Let me first say, and then I want to hear, because I was fascinated at the 5 things that you say are happening there. But this is what SoFi had to say, a statement. SoFi is threatening to bring legal action in response. And in a statement says, in part, SoFi maintains strong confidence in the integrity of our financial reporting. We are a highly regulated public company with financial statements and extensive disclosures prepared in conformity with U.S. GAAP and rules and regulations of the SEC, supported by robust internal controls and procedures. Is that true?
I mean, it's a non-response.
It is, but some of the things that you pointed out, you would know if you were doing some of those things. Can you point out some of the things with the loans?
Yeah,
Okay.
but you're saying these things that you're pointing out definitely raise eyebrows, but it's not necessarily illegal.
The way that you get to a default.
I so wish Joe did not cut him off there. I wanted to hear what he had to say, because I mean, I'm just reading the, oh, hit my camera here. I'm just reading the body language, and it does look like he was going to say that he does believe aspects of this is truly illegal. Okay. Now, I'm not a regulator. This is why you don't marry stocks, because if SoFi is doing illegal practices, how are we supposed to know? We're trusting what they put out, right? Now, I'll talk to you after this at great length why I don't believe that and what gives me trust in SoFi. But I did want him to say whether or not he believes that this is actually illegal practices, because then also SoFi, depending on what they do from legal action standpoints, like you kind of like let's make your case clear. Like, are you calling for fraud, or are you just using words like Enron-esque?
Legal.
The way that you get to a default rate that's a third of what it actually is it's so that you can issue more stock.
So SoFi's real superpower is borrowing money and booking those borrowing proceeds as loan sales. Now, we exposed one particular loan where they borrowed $312 million, booked it as a sale. And it turns out that much of SoFi's accounting edifice is built on that single transaction. So we've pulled documents from state filings that show it's a borrowing, it's not a sale, even though the CFO said on the conference call it was a sale. It's clearly a borrowing. And so we think SoFi restates that loan into being a loan, but when it does that, we think it also has to restate about $1 billion of EBITDA and restate its capital ratio significantly lower. So that's why we're short SoFi.
So there's a couple points that I wanted to cover. One, in terms of the actual pieces that he's talking about, I'm not a lawyer. I haven't gone through the actual papers and stuff like this, but they have so much legal counsel at SoFi. Deloitte audits them. They're covered by the FDI, or sorry, not FDI. Well, I mean, but that's not the regulating body that helps with this. But like Federal Reserve, Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, SEC, all of these regulators, including internal counsel and compliance workers and all of this stuff. SoFi got their bank license, which was not required by law at all. They could have remained a fintech and a lender just like Upstart or any of these other companies. They invited additional scrutiny. Okay. So if they believe that there's something here that is fishy, you would suspect that that is being, spotted by an additional party. And it's not. Okay. And actually, in fact, a lot of SoFi's loan books have been rated extremely high, some of them AAA, And so whenever I start to add up all of the parties who are regulating and allowing SoFi's practices, even potentially stepping into Canada, which is now the newest one, where now they're potentially getting entities in SoFi.ca and all of this stuff for Canada. It's like, this is one of the hardest, bank charters to get. Like, very few fintechs and banks end up entering Canada because they are so, like the regulations are high. They're very scrutinous. But yet SoFi feels like they're able to take that hard road. Like, there's so many fintechs that do rent to charter strategies and completely run their books that way for years and years and years. And SoFi just said, no, we want to take the hard road. Owned 50 different bank licenses before end up getting their official nationally chartered bank. And so this idea that they are doing practices that are not only frowned upon, like potentially, I know a lot of analysts don't like fair value accounting, even though it's fully legal, but the idea that they're doing things that are just like completely illegal and that the practice is against the law, I just have such a hard time believing anything along those lines. Or even, I spoke about this before, but data-driven investing, working at the office of the CFO, if there's one party that is potentially most held to guilt here, is actually Chris Lapointe. Like, he is the chief financial officer. So all the financial, practices run through him in the final approval. If Chris Lapointe is not only seeing these things, doubling down, I've talked to him since he's joined the company. He says like he loves the business. He's tying his financial success, buying stock in the company, getting rewards and all of this stuff with a fraudulent business. I just can't believe that at all. Now, if Muddy Waters says, hey, he believes, Carson believes that there's a great financial crisis, which is what he said, a great financial-esque like event, and AI is going to hurt personal credit. I mean, that's just a personal opinion, and that could come true. I mean, his guess is as good as mine. So that I actually don't have any fault for. That's perfectly fine. What bothers me, and this is something that legitimately, like, you guys wouldn't be able to see, but it's I actually think B-Dubs put a comment about it earlier. Did I save that? We definitely need to discuss Muddy Waters. Why would dude drop more stuff over the weekend and then go on CNBC about SoFi? This is like his third push against SoFi. He said he doesn't do this if he doesn't have a smoking gun. And I disagree. All of the analysts that have overlooked Muddy Waters things, no one has put a downgrade on SoFi since this report. All of them have either said this is all publicly available knowledge, we already know about this, or there might be stuff that like is he said, she said. Like, your guess is as good as mine, but you're just essentially giving your opinion. None of them have done a downgrade. And then in terms of the quote unquote exposure, that's where I think the FUD is coming in for them to drive attention to bring this price down. I reached out to Giuliano Bologna, and now I don't want to bash Giuliano. I think that he's a good person. I think that if he was part of my family and I was seeing him at Thanksgiving, I'm sure I'd love the guy, But do I agree with his research on SoFi? No, I don't. I think that he looks at the company wrong. Now, if you guys don't know Giuliano Bologna, he's the most bearish person on SoFi, and even he has recently doubled his price target on SoFi from $6 up to $12. Okay. I reached out to Giuliano Bologna a long time ago, like Q3 of 2024, to ask him to come on the podcast as SoFi stock was, in the midst of a bunch of crap with RAM and Giuliano and all that stuff that was coming out. And the OGs of SoFi will remember that moment. But it was an inflection point in SoFi's career after Q3 with the loan platform business and everything. So I wanted his take. And he said he's very busy at the moment and that he will not be able to come on. I didn't hear from him from all of 2025. Okay. I then get an email from him, like over this weekend, from Giuliano, and he said, a lot of stuff has happened on SoFi. I'd love to come on the podcast. Sorry, I haven't replied to you in a long time. And I'm like, that is really odd timing. That the one time where the stock has come down from 32, because it's hard to put up your bear case whenever the company has gone nothing but one direction. And now that it's down to 17, you want to come on and talk your bear case. And I was like, I have a feeling I most likely will end up getting reached out to by Muddy Waters to also have them talk about this company. And then I get this email, like, I got to make sure I'm not leaking the thing. But you can see the time here. This person ends up, this was not an hour ago or a little over an hour ago. Person that works for Muddy Waters wants to come on the podcast, talk about SoFi. They don't care about my opinion at all. They don't want to discuss SoFi. They have one objective, okay? And so during this moment of when SoFi is getting beaten down, B-Dub says it's a smoking gun. I think the complete opposite. If you had a smoking gun, you wouldn't be talking to YouTubers, okay? You wouldn't need me. But they are trying to control the narrative. This is a short-term trade, in my opinion, for them, and they want to make sure that the stock ends up, correcting to a price. And now, this is just my own opinion. Now, I'm not going to have them on because in case that there is legal action or anything along these lines over the next year, any words that Carson Block ends up talking about will potentially be brought into motion. Okay? I don't want to be anywhere near having to testify he was on my podcast when he says yada, yada, yada. Not going to happen. Just in case, because SoFi did say they intend to pursue legal action. Not going to happen. But in terms of I'll repeat myself just one more time. In terms of the ideas of him saying that he believes all personal loans are in worry because of great financial crisis, the AI, that sort of AI disruption in personal loans and job loss, that's a fine critique to have. Calling the company a fraud, you better have some evidence. That's the only thing that I'm a little bit worried about. Okay. Let's see here. Sorry, I went on a big tangent there. I didn't see any of your comments. It reminds me of all the Wirecard stuff. A company not giving a strong response. All analysts being bullish. It's so funny that you say all the analysts are being bullish because, for the longest time, all the analysts were not being bullish. Okay, reminds you of Wirecard. Wirecard was a fully nationally chartered bank, not profitable. All of these stuff, they were taking on incredible levels of risk. SoFi has extremely high FICO scores, is fully profitable. Nothing like Wirecard. But yeah, I honestly just think that they are trying to get exposure, and I would expect that Carson is going to be on many podcasts, stuff like this, because of that. Now, in terms of SoFi actually giving their opinion and response, this is a very Noto thing to do. Vlad and all them were doing podcasts and everything like this. SoFi was staying completely silent. I think it's one of those things where he wants to let the numbers talk, not the company. And you could say, well, that's bullcrap. We want to hear more from SoFi. But that's the time for that is on the earnings calls for Q&A for analysts to actually ask them questions about this. And there will be questions about this. Okay. So they'll be able to ask questions. I had my conversation with Anthony Noto. I'm actually surprised. The one thing that Carson did not suggest, because I've heard from other people that were bearish on SoFi, like the great short guys, the what are their names? Vincent Daniels and his other name. Honestly, and they're great guys. I've talked to them probably 4 or 5 times. We do not see eye to eye on SoFi at all, but they have treated me with the utmost respect. So I've got no, on a personal level, they're great guys, but we just don't agree. What was I going to say though? they had assumed that I was being paid by SoFi and all of this stuff to talk up the stock. And I'm like, not at all. Like, and then the one time that I talked to them, whenever it went from 4 to 32, it was a lot of like giving me my flowers and, you know, suggesting that I was right on that call. I wonder if they would say the same thing now at 17, but still. Okay. The securitization default rates hitting triggers, I think is potentially a bad sign. Now, there's some defenses here in terms of the amount of prepaid loans on those securitizations was much higher. So the amount of default needed to hit the trigger was like 30% lower than what it would usually be if they had securitized earlier. But overall, like, we'll have to see. Like I think a lot of people are running to assumptions on SoFi without hearing it from the company. How did this affect defaults going into Q1 of 2026? You know, we're not far away. They report early. We are going to see in probably 5 weeks their earnings call. You're trying to make big moves in 5 weeks here? Like, I'll just listen to what the company has to say. Oh, sorry. I know what I was going to say about Anthony Noto not responding or even pursuing legal action if they do or don't do. It's like, what's the upside for them for Anthony Noto to get involved, for Chris Lapointe to get involved, to, you know, potentially sue? And even if they win, if this gets dragged out and all this stuff, for them to win against a company like Muddy Waters, what is the upside? Tens of millions of dollars, maybe at the most. You know, if they can prove that there was maybe a form of like, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer here, but I think maybe just focusing on the business and trying to improve the numbers has been Anthony Noto's strategy a long time, is letting the numbers speak for themselves. I need Micron to go up or I lose my house. That's a tough that's a tough position to be in. By the way, I had spoken to an investor. If they're watching, they know who they are. I was listening to this person who had prided themselves, was very proud of themselves for being a very strict investor on the way up. But as things were going, they were getting more and more ballsy, and they were kind of doing a wheel strategy and not holding on to a lot of stock and taking profits at every turn. And just, it was a recyclable trading strategy. It was working very well. And then SoFi, on the last earnings, they felt very confident that Wall Street expectations of the numbers and their expectations of the numbers were not aligned. And they were actually right on that the numbers were way better than expected. So they actually broke their own rules to go and buy calls on the stock. Okay. And during that moment, obviously SoFi did not end up going up since then. And we had seen the top so far, and it actually has come down ever since. And it essentially just buried them. They essentially got buried in SoFi calls that are not going to expire or are going to expire essentially worthless. Because they ended up taking on more risk and broke their rules. Now, they're not going to lose everything, but that thing earlier of that comment of saying, if Micron doesn't go up, I'm going to lose my house or something like this. It's like, if you have a strategy, you know, for me, I hold common stock. You guys don't, like, I'll sell options, but I don't buy any options. And people talk about how much additional money I could have made if I did leaps and stuff like this. And I kick myself too sometimes, but that's hindsight, because that's the time that it turned around. Like, what if I would have done leaps much earlier than that? Like, it's just extremely hard. And I want people, especially during these extremely erratic times, to like keep to your morals, keep to the strategy that you know is going to work, and don't run these types of lottery tickets. And I was even speaking to that investor, and he said, well, one of the reasons why I was increasing my risk, and he said subconsciously, this is what, like, looking back on it, maybe he felt, is that subconsciously he believes his job as a software developer is going to go away. He doesn't feel confident in his role surviving in an AI world because he's not the AA plus of his team. And so he almost bet it all to make sure that like he could really shorten his time to retirement because of worries about artificial intelligence. I'm curious if other people are getting in those types of situations of making bolder and larger calls in the markets because they are worried about big change. It's a scary time out there. Stay safe. Keep to your morals. Keep to the risk tolerances that you had set yourself whenever you originally started investing. Okay. Let's see. Good point. I do feel his pain. Yeah. Get the chat back on screen. My bad. I guess that takes away from the... you know what I found, though, is I was looking at like the stock here, and I had chat on screen, and then I was doing like a poll, and I was like, what is this? Why do I have so many things on screen? Like, so that's why I might start taking down chat during these moments when we have stuff on screen, because I think it just looks too messy. Let's go ahead and have a look at the SPY. Nice big green candles coming back. We're up 1.5%. Crude oil's at $88.65 a barrel. We ended up listening to Trump. Maybe they're looking to, wind down the Iranian military efforts, and hopefully that ends up calming some nerves, potentially opening up the strait. We'll see how that ends up playing out. Now, Iran State TV has said that they said, nothing is going to change the position of the Strait of Hormuz. It's not changed and won't change no matter what. Harsh. We'll see. Maybe the Iranian regime are an understanding bunch. Okay. Tanner, for the record, I believe that this is a coordinated attack. B-dubs, I'm curious. I always wonder about this, because this was way after I talked about it. Do you type out these messages and then time yourself, like whenever I'm like coming down off my speech, that you're like, okay, now he's going to look at chat? Do you guys do that? Do you guys time your messages for whenever you guys think I'm about to look at it? Do you incorporate the delay of the stream? Because I feel like you guys do, because that was way too well timed. For the record, I believe that this is a coordinated attack on SoFi to slander their name and prevent them from entering the S&P 500 for as long as possible. I agree. It would be much harder after the S&P 500 if there is a large percentage of the float. Look at this chat, dude. Everyone said yes. Yes, yes, yes. Are you selling Micron? No. That is so funny. That is hilarious. Okay. It's gotta suck, eh? You put in so much time, and then I see what you guys also do. You'll write this big block. I'll look away from chat at the wrong time, and then you don't want to type it in again. You're so pissed at that point that you just say, look at my message. And then you making me scroll. Crazy. Only for the special few will I go through. Then we copy and save it and paste it again and again. Okay. A bunch of you guys are feeling a direct attack right now. I can feel it. I've called you out by name. So we covered Micron. SK Hynix pulling forward. Why did I say it like that? SK Hynix pulling forward a potential new clean room by 2 months, potentially hurting or changing the modeling of the supply can always bring uncertainty to a company like Micron. Stock down 4.3%. What has happened? I wanted to check on some metals recently. Silver, $63 on the iShares Trust, and then GLD, 406, down 1.6% on gold. Pretty much flat in the last 3 months. Last month down 13.5%. Crazy changes there. I also saw this. Where was Fubo? Dude, Fubo, last time I checked, let me zoom out a little bit. Last time I checked this name, I remember it being in like the 4s. This company has gotten absolutely obliterated. Did the Disney deal not go through? My understanding was Fubo was like getting bought out and all this stuff. Like they had like a $6 billion deal. Now it's sitting at $1.4 billion. Did that get canceled? Okay. And then they had a stock split too. How long are you holding Micron for? I'm getting major deja vu. I feel like I've read this exact message before. I'm at a much lower cost basis, but memory is the key for LLMs, robotics, self-driving, etc. It's not as cyclical as everyone makes it out to be. Also, HBM is complex to make. Yeah, I mean, I do think it's cyclical. Obviously, there is some long-term agreements, stuff like this, that are helping with the pricing dynamics going forward. But there are some major breakthroughs, and I think just the amount of fab space that's going out does change some things. But like, if you're a believer in like what Elon Musk's belief is in terms of the terafab and just the amount of needs for EUV and compute in general, and like every single component along the way, I mean, we're not even remotely near done this cycle for Micron. So it really depends on how bullish you are. But like, then again, Elon has said like the economy in general will 10x in about 10 years. And he says that's sort of like his base case, like not even his bull case. So it really depends on how bullish you are in the future. Nebius, what's going on with Nebius? Not much, man. I wouldn't even say that this is a crazy day for Nebius. I wanted to record a video on Nebius over the weekend, but then at every turn, I was just like, oh, well, I should probably add this, and I should probably add this. And anyway, Nebius's original raise from, well, $2 billion from NVIDIA, then $3.75 billion, went to $4 billion. Many people know this. But did you guys know that right at the end, like after the market had closed, they actually had updated that to be $4.3 billion. They added another like $375 million on top of that. So they had increased their convertible note up 2 more times from the original $3.75 billion that had brought the stock down by like 10% or 12%. So they are raising a ton of money. Yeah, the optics trade is pretty interesting too. Yeah. Light, coherent, AOI. They're pretty interesting. I'm not as bullish as Elon, apparently. I don't think many of us are. He's been known to be optimistic, and I'm an optimistic guy. But he's an optimist. But if he's right, we're all going to be happy. We're all going to be very, very happy. Tanner, thoughts on BMNR potentially ETH bottom? So by ETH bottom, you mean, you know, back in like this local bottom, like 1700? Yeah, maybe. But if you're talking about like how locally, like this week, now we start to buy, they're actually under 1 times MNAV. I'll have to put out my BMNR update video. If I do, there's not too much to update. That's the only unfortunate part. But BMNR essentially increased their, holdings in orbs. A lot of that was actually from appreciation of the stock. So now they're holding like $93 million. They increased their holding of OpenAI by another $40 million. Orbs did. So that increases BMNR's OpenAI exposure in proxy of orbs. They added a crap ton, like 65,000 Ethereum, $140 million buys, but they didn't really raise much. They actually took out a lot of that money from just their cash. So their cash stack went down, very, very tiny raise, and they're actually about 0.98 on an MNAV, which means they can't really raise right now. It's actually more prudent to take your cash and buy back the stock whenever you're under 1 times than the other way around. Amidst buying another 10K shares of Grab per this morning's stream, do you ever pitch it to you? Your thoughts on it? They're expanding to Taiwan as of this morning. I saw the acquisition news, something like $600 million acquisition. It's interesting. It's interesting. I appreciate the donation, but honestly, I don't know much about Grab. We talked about setting up a show, but it's probably not a prudent time to talk about it even right now. Like, stock's just getting absolutely killed, and I'm focused on buying other names. Like, yeah. The small amount that I have looked into Grab, I either thought, okay, well, I'd just prefer to buy a fintech name, or I'd prefer to buy Uber. I don't understand if doing the combination of both with a high valuation, in my opinion. Okay. We need Clarity Act more than any of us ever imagined. Yeah, it's so true. Okay. Let's go ahead and sorry to the PayPal fanatics out there. Juan Rodriguez, if you guys have seen him, he's been doing some great work on X, ended up finding another person who is resigning from PayPal. It probably actually is bigger than looking at it this way. But quick update. I resigned from PayPal this week. Interesting year, but ultimately I am far less at home in corporate America than I am with small groups of scrappy iconoclasts who play outside the system. To that end, so excited about what's next. Doesn't even talk about PayPal. I don't know. It doesn't seem great whenever someone is not blaming PayPal, but just blaming corporate America whenever you join a company. Yeah, it turns out this whole idea of work sucks. Do you like dLocal? I do like dLocal. It's in the portfolio. Big fan. Get Noto back on. I mean, dude, I'd have him as a daily guest if he was available, but the guy's busy. So I'm going to hope for, let's shoot for something like an annual meet and then work our way down to quarterly. But, it's like whenever you have that first date with the very pretty lady and I'm like, I don't even know when to text her. Do I text her right away or do I give her some time to be herself? No, it's cool. You can go out with your friends. Yeah. That's how I feel with Noto. What's going on with SoFi? Please, quick summary, sir. Well, private credit concerns, the worry that SoFi's loans are underperforming, muddy waters, and the bears are coming out in full force. Yeah. Pretty much it. Potential change in interest rate hikes is also not good. You sticking with Micron as a few months swing, or does this SK Hynix thing change things for you? No, it doesn't change things for me. Micron, so far right now, I would definitely be willing to see it out to next quarter and some of the continuous commentary from Micron. At this price, it's under so the old Peter Lynch quote is a 1 times peg is sort of the benchmark. Under 1 times is worth it. It's under 0.1 times. I've never even seen that before. I've seen 0.5s And then that's like ridiculously cheap. I've never seen like a 0.09. It's unbelievably cheap just because the rate of growth is significant. If the, additional clean room space, massive build outs, $13.3 billion, like that's big, potentially changes the outlook of 3 years from now. I'm not sure that I have a worry on that just yet. Okay. Just did a Donald. What? Okay, no. All right. Visa is hiring crypto engineers. Interesting. And Bernstein says that Circle and Coinbase are the best proxy for stablecoin upside as agentic machine payments emerge. Yeah. I mean, Coinbase is obviously going to be a big winner for anything crypto, especially agentic payments and everything like this. But yeah. All right, let's see what's new on CNBC. Buying opportunities in U.S. large caps after recent corrections from Morgan Stanley. Let's have a listen to this. This could be interesting. I'm looking for confirmation bias at this point.
Joining us is Caterina Simonetti, Executive Director at Morgan Stanley Private Wealth Management. Caterina, I only say that because others like Yardeni, not to cite them again, say their preference for going international will resume once the conflict ends. But you're saying that you think U.S. stocks will still be the most attractive?
Well, Kelly, thank you for having me on the show. Of course, in any type of situation like this, when we look at the military conflict, it is difficult to make any kind of calls because this is one of the highest of the systemic risks, this unpredictable risks that we have seen. But our call absolutely is on the U.S. large caps, because in the time of this uncertainty, two things have to happen. One is we have to focus on quality. We have to stay with quality companies that have predictable cash flows and are able to absorb the higher costs that might come with higher oil prices. And then the second part of course, is the fact that we've seen valuations come down significantly. In fact, since last October, the stocks of S&P, 40% of S&P stocks are down more than 20%. So this presents buying opportunity in high quality companies here in the US.
Okay, so while that's taking place, Caterina, more generally, we just had this conversation about what might be going on for months, really, in this conflict. As much as the president might say, and perhaps the acute phase of it is winding down, there's going to be these longer-standing reverberations, I guess you could say, in energy markets. Does that have a bigger impact here on either the odds of a recession or inflation, on what the Fed will do? And you say the bull market remains intact.
Well, the market, of course, does what it does. The markets tend to price in the end of the military conflict significantly before they happen. War in Ukraine, for example, is still going on, and yet 4 years later, the market is significantly higher than it has been because of the AI expansion, because of the earnings momentum, because of the low inflation. So we have to look at it as a whole, and the risk of the recession still remains significantly high. So as tempting as it might be to see this current correction in a very similar light as what we've seen a year ago in the Liberation Day, is very much a very different situation. And we do see the oil price as a big component there, but we also expect it not to be quite at $100, and if it gets there, not to stay there for long.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that we've seen earnings estimates, not just for the full year, but even for the quarter. Those have been on the rise even as the war broke out.
Correct.
I mean, that tells you that as much as we might be seeing a little bit higher odds of recession, a little bit higher odds of Fed rate hikes, the earnings power that we've seen, I guess, would you say that's what kind of gives you comfort? Do you see any deterioration further down in the year because of what's happened, or no?
Kelly, that's exactly it. The strength of the AI momentum and the expansion of earnings, specifically here in the U.S., is cannot be disregarded despite of what's happening in the world. With that, we must proceed cautiously. This is where quality might be considered, sector exposure must be considered, and the of concentration has to be on areas like industrials, where there's still that AI buildup and expansion. Healthcare, for example, is another area where we see tremendous buying opportunities, materials, and of course, energy. When we are talking about energy, we must be buying energy, and we must be doing it carefully and positioning the portfolios to take advantage of the move that is happening in the sector because of what's happening in the world.
I mean, it's pretty interesting. You have the broad markets down 7% from the highs, but energy's up 32% this year. And we could all wake up tomorrow and to a totally different set of circumstances until this feels like it's really winding down. So would you tell people, there's a big debate. I mean, a lot of people would say book your gains in the energy space and walk away, but you sound like you're saying, no, you need to have maybe more exposure here.
There's time and a place for booking the gains. For example, our whole last year was small caps. We increased the exposure, we made significant progress there, and now we're scaling back. We're scaling into the large caps. Same goes for energy. Energy is here to stay. It's essential, it's important for profitability for the companies. We are not going to get away from it. Now, of course, the price of energy, it matters. And can we expect a pull back in some of the earnings and some of the gains that we're seeing right now? Absolutely. And that's why we need to diversify into the other areas that have declined because of the current situation, where we see the buying opportunities without abandoning energy.
Very interesting. But I actually just saw you guys in chat posting about Jensen Huang on Lex Friedman's show. I'm curious if we can watch. I'd probably get taken down if I watch this, but I would love to listen to this. Might be a shorter show. Maybe we just go to 2:30 and then I go and listen to that on my own. I don't know. I don't think Lex would take me down if I listened to clips, but just to be safe. Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at oil prices right now. $88.08. That's bringing the SPY to up 1.4% on the day. Not bad. Not bad. It wasn't up 2% like it was earlier. That was a nice day. That was, you got to love those times. Tanner, run it on Twitch. I still don't think that's how that works. Still don't. For my, so we do an hour-long member-only live stream, not for YouTube members, but for the pro members. And we watch anything we want there because we don't monetize it anyway. So we'll watch a YouTube video. But here, I don't know if the same rules apply because we're monetizing and he's technically, it's his content. So he could copyright strike us. I don't think he would do that. I'd pay to see a Lex Tanner fight. Dude, the guy would tear my head off. I'm pretty sure he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Little jiu-jitsu. And I am not a black belt. Yeah. I'm what you call a white belt. Okay. New is pumping. I saw that earlier today. They were up like 4%. I don't know where they are now. 6.2%. That's a good day. That's a lovely day. But I'm a happy I'm not a no belt. I did jiu-jitsu for a while. But I'm just, places me at white belt. A couple stripes, but nothing big. What time do you start streaming? I'm watching Amit every day. I want to watch yours after 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every day. Go for about an hour and a half. Dude, I'm brown belt. I could be brown belts would kill me. I've never tapped a brown belt in my life. That's 1 under black for the people that don't follow. Okay. Let's go ahead and see if Trump has posted anything new that might end up bringing the stocks down today. At 6:50 a.m. today, $1.5 billion in notional value worth of S&P 500 futures contracts were bought. This trade was so large that it sent the index up 0.3% higher in that minute. Oh my gosh. Then 14 minutes later, at 7:04 a.m., President Trump announced productive discussions with Iran were underway. There is, I actually don't understand it. There's so much freaking what feels like manipulate. I don't know if it's just the market is so large that you can always find a buy that you could have pointed to, whether it's a $1.5 billion one or a 600 million. Like someone has to be lucky sometimes. That's pretty crazy. Okay. Red is under black. Not the. I don't know if it's different for you, but red for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, at least the way that I know it, like in the Gracie sort of idea, is more like for legends, like really, really old, like multi-black, like literally Gracie family type people. Brown is under black in the, at least the, I don't know what you call it, academy that I go to or did go to a long time ago. It's white, blue, purple, brown, black. Okay. SPY up 1.4. NVIDIA, let's check out the Meg 7 names right now. Tesla up 3.3, Amazon up 3.8, NVIDIA up 2%, Meta up 1.5%, Apple is up 1.5%, Microsoft 0.3, and Google 0.1. Microsoft is just, nothing's moving this one, eh? That is crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Air Test Systems, we'll be talking about this one later today on the Stock Tank episodes. We're having Roy on to discuss this name. This has been an absolute winner for Roy. Purchasing this name, I think in the single digits, if not the teens. Now at 37.43, up 8.5%. Only thing beating this today is names like Intuitive Machines, PayPay, Fastly, Sezzle, Better Homes. A lot of very small names in that list, at least the ones that I cover. SMCI is up 7%. Who's taking that risk? Let me know. And also, is this company going to stay in the S&P 500? Like multiple red flags. Obviously, those the people who are responsible, will hopefully be held to justice. Is that how you say that? They'll go to jail. The co-founder. But is now you're sort of looking at a company that is post the people who are causing the problems. Is it a cleaner organization now and they can go back to selling? But if I was a buyer, like I have to think, like you're not just buying numbers on a screen, like the spreadsheet just goes up continually. You have to find customers to sell your products to. So are the customers going to pick a name like SMCI after all of these red flags? Or are you going to say, hey, I don't know what the next thing is. Like maybe there's another red flag to come. You know what? I'm just going to go to Dell. Like I'll pay the premium. I don't want to deal with SMCI. And if SMCI says, hey, no, please trust us, we'll end up lowering the cost on our contract. That's also not good for the financials of the business either. So do you think that there's financial hits aside from the adjustment of the actual fraud? Do you think that there's additional financial adjustments in the modeling of this company that you need to that you need to add on because of these red flags? No muddy waters on SMCI. I know. Gee. It's so funny, too. I was talking yesterday about how some of you guys talk to me. Like, even this morning, I'm just dealing with people online. the way some people talk to other people on the internet is mind blowing. Like I talked about, I was like, yeah, the guy's going to jail because he used a hairdryer. And then this guy, like, he said the R word. Okay. He called me the R word. And he's like, you freaking dumb. Like, you think this guy's going to federal prison because he used a hairdryer? I'm like, why would you start out with like just a vicious attack and not understand that the joke just went over your head? So crazy how vicious people can be on the internet. They have a documented history of screwing people over. Super duper micro. Yeah, they called me regarded. Regarded. But yeah. Just being little meanies online. Let's see here. Palantir. Palantir got a lot of bullish news. Oh my gosh. Going to they're deepening the relationship with the US government, potentially for good. Up 6%, $160 on this name. Let's see. Do you think stocks like ELF and Celsius are buys at these prices? I don't follow ELF or Celsius nearly enough, but I'm sure my girlfriend has some ELF products, and I definitely have. I'm definitely drinking Celsius often, so take that with the information that you want. But I can't even form a sentence. Like even the way I'm talking right now, like I need to log off and go listen to Lex Friedman. RVI, Robinhood's private equity name, up 5.5%. Again, AUM $68 million. I think they hoped for a billion, right? Let's see. IRGC spokesperson says, spokesperson is so funny, like it's a girl. Like, it could be a female. Says no need to mine Strait of Hormuz as Iranian armed forces have full control. Okay. They're only letting Chinese oil through, supposedly. Okay. Yeah, there's not... let's check crypto prices, actually. That's something I wanted to check, because BMNR ended up updating their thing today. How's that doing? Up 1%. ETH up 4%. And then Bitcoin up 3.9% on Bitcoin. Lex still posts podcasts. It is crazy. Like, sometimes the algorithm will stop serving you a certain creator or something like this, and you're like, oh, well, that person's dead to me. But nothing has changed. Like, their business is probably the biggest it's ever been, but you haven't seen one in a while. So you're like, wait, he still exists? Like, what do you expect him to be doing? Do you see how the rise of vibe coding and agent-driven app development could be bullish for cybersecurity? Well, I think overall internet traffic rising significantly, I think, is bullish for cybersecurity. But I mean, I'm not saying that they're priced accordingly, but they are some of the more expensive names, where I think that there's more alpha in if you can get the bet right on some of these infrastructure names continuing to pan out, right? Like, to me, obviously, no one is questioning whether or not cybersecurity is recurring revenue, and that's why they're getting a big benefit. But I also don't think that it's a question whether or not Nebius gets recurring revenue. But the real question there is whether the build-out and profitability is going to happen. But then this is where I look to names like Google Cloud or something like this. Like, we've seen this pan out before, where let's go to Fiscal AI really quick. I'll just build you guys a quick thing. Let me drop that and drop this. If we go to segments and look at Cloud revenue, and then Google Cloud operating income, you can already see here that this has recently turned profitable for them. And we can look at this from a quarterly perspective, drag this all the way back. Will it go all the way back? Okay. That, you know, it has not always been a profitable venture for Google Cloud, but then they ended up, obviously, here, wait, let me get in a margin as well. I think I created this in a custom. Let's go back a little bit further. There we go. So this used to be extremely low margin, negative 62%. And only very recently did this turn profitable in March of 2023. Now this brings in, 30+% margins, extremely fast growing. That's another thing too. If we can bring up, let's go back to segments. I'll add the percent change, Google Cloud revenue. Look how fast this has been growing. 47+%. I know the text is a little small. Maybe I can try to bring it in a bit. But this is unbelievably recurring in nature, not cyclical. You even see the bars every single quarter after the one before, because you're finding these customers that are sticking onto the platform, and then you add from there. But there is no, spikes in Q4. It's just constant growth. Okay. Now you're seeing a big spike in growth right now, this high 47+%. And now they're calling for all of 2026 being above 50+% at higher and higher margins. It's like, this is what I foresee a name like Nebius becoming eventually. Okay. And that same bet on cybersecurity of more activity, more run on GPUs and AI services, that you can find a recurring name at, non-cyclical, non-discretionary, that is, I think, a better value, much cheaper than some of these cybersecurity names that are very, very expensive. No, I'm not saying Rubrik is not. Rubrik, I think, might be a play, but I know it much less, and it's much easier for me to follow than, or sorry, it's much easier for me to follow Nebius. All right. Let's see what else. I saw that they were letting India oil through. Oh, I was just reading the one report that you could definitely be right about that. Okay. Let's check on. Oh man, I really want to watch this Lex Friedman thing. I don't think I'm allowed to, so I'm going to play it safe. We talked about the SoFi CNBC thing. If you guys didn't see that at the beginning, I think that they're trying to get exposure on this trade. I'm not sure that, it's a good selling point that they're going to try to get on every news station and everything to talk up this short. I actually think that makes it less of a strong argument. Okay. Constellation Energy. No. A long way for Iran crisis being resolved. We are a long way from the Iran crisis being resolved. Let's have a listen to this. I sure hope not.
Joining us now is Jonathan Panikoff. He's director of the Snowcroft Middle East Security Initiative at the Atlantic Council. Jonathan, good to see you again. Just jump in here. And what do you think is the state of affairs diplomatically between the U.S. and Iran?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Look, I think clearly there's been some movement. We saw this behind the scenes. There's rumor now that the Pakistanis are offering to host an engagement negotiation, puts a new player in the mix here. The reality is the Omanis are not going to be a trusted mediator anymore. The Qataris are taking direct hits, and so it makes it awkward. And so the Pakistanis, maybe the Turks are slightly stepping up here, but we're still a long way from this crisis being resolved. President Trump's decision is a 5-day extension on some of the infrastructure. It's not a permanent one that we're not going to hit the infrastructure, or that the Israelis may not. So we've got some time to go, but clearly there's been some progress, and that's obviously helping, especially on the markets and the energy sector.
Do you think the U.S. and Israel are on the same page with all of this?
The U.S. and the Israelis both still have target lists that they really want to complete. You're talking about another 2 to 3 weeks really worth of targets that they want to hit. So if we got through most of it, do I think the Israelis would sign off? I think they probably don't have a choice.
Okay, that's not a good good video. It seems to be breaking up. I did just read this, though. New York Times reports Pentagon officials are weighing a possible deployment of the Army's 82nd Airborne to support operations in Iran, though no order has been given. The option would give the division's 3,000-soldier immediate response force, which could deploy within 18 hours. Officials are also considering about 2,500 Marines from the 31st MEU for a possible move on the Karg Island. It is scary that we're still talking about ramping up more potential military force. A little bit worrisome. Okay. Let's go back here really quick. See what happens to the S&P during this moment. I also want to see, I don't think we have any earnings really. We're at the tail end now. Like literally, SoFi's earnings is 5 weeks away. Isn't that nuts? We have GameStop tomorrow for earnings. Nothing really else. Pony AI. Nike next week. And then it's kind of like we're already into next quarter. Air Test Systems is actually on the 7th of April. Wow. And then we start up JP Morgan and all of those companies on the 14th of April. How crazy is that? So we get JP Morgan and J&J and Citigroup and IBKR and all of those names on the 14th of April. That's the start of earnings. And then we do it all over again, ladies and gentlemen. This time it felt like companies were really spread out. Like I felt like I was kind of busy with earnings throughout the entire season. It's kind of fun. Now I get a month off. Not even, because yeah. I'm super late, but I definitely time my messages. I need you to read every single Shift 4 comment I read. Yeah, so next week, if you guys are paying attention, Marshall will be the first new member of the future investing team, probably the only one for a good while. But did I say Shift 4 or future investing? I thought okay, anyway. Marshall's going to be the first member of the future investing team. He joins on Sunday. And then on Monday, I'm going to probably have him come over here, and then you guys can like meet him on stream. I think that'll be cool. And then obviously if we do a meetup or whatever in Toronto in August, that he'll be there. He'll be the one that sets up the whole thing. So if anything goes wrong in terms of the venue or the food or anything like this, just blame him. Are you against the 6-month earnings? Yes, very much so. I've posted about this a couple times, but I think that the difference between retail and institutional investors, aside from just managing money, is access to information. They spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on alternative data sets that retail investors have a hard time obviously coping with. You know, it makes the trading unprofitable or less profitable. So I just have concerns about, you know, less transparency. I think most companies like here, like guidance is not required. You don't need to give guidance on companies. Most companies do give guidance. But what it allows them to do is things like what Google did, where they were like, at one point they were showing guidance, and then they said, hey, I mean, going forward, it's not looking great, so we're going to stop giving guidance. And I don't think that that's a great a great idea. I think it's bad for business. I think it's bad for retail trading. Will Marshall get a work uniform? That's very funny. No. Anytime I say Marshall, isn't Marshall a common name? That says Matters, but Marshall Mathers is what people actually say, which I actually share a birthday with Eminem, Marshall Mathers. How much are you paying Marshall? I'm not paying. It's just purely for exposure. Yeah, I'm just getting his name out there. He's actually not paid, no benefits. He gets access to the sauna. That should be enough. No, he gets paid. Small. Oh, wow, I didn't know you were that old. I meant in terms of the day, not the year. I'm not like 50. Who wants to be paid in Canadian dollars? I agree with you, but Canadians do like it for some reason. But I never understood that too. Like the NFL players and all this stuff that are like, you have to pay me in Bitcoin. It's like, if you want Bitcoin, you can just take your US dollars and go buy Bitcoin. Tanner pays him in ums. Dude's rich. There's more ums on this stream than you can get anywhere else. Ums, likes. What else do we have? You knows. If you're interested in any of that, want to come work for Future Investing, you're going to be loaded. Yeah, so the goal is, especially because you guys will be able to talk with Marshall and stuff like this in the Discord or whatever, or whenever he joins up on the stream. I'm sure he'll be in the background of most streams too, at least for the start. He does invest, but he's just like parking his money away for retirement. So like he buys the S&P 500 and just like buys the SPY or VOO or whatever. And he's just been doing that for years. The goal is to turn him into a degenerate. And that's what we need. I give him a month before he starts buying, you know, AI names. If he knows what's good for him, he's going to start buying NVIDIA before he loses his job, before I fire him because an AI agent replaces everything he does. So he better pick up on some of those companies if he knows what's good for him. NVIDIA is boring. You're right. Yeah, full port Nebius. Yeah, something a little bit more degenerate. But we need to corrupt his young mind. I actually think he's a little older than me, but we're the same age. Went to school together. Is he going to be your bodyguard at the meet if SoFi goes down? He was my gym partner for probably about a year and a half. The dude is jacked. Okay. So maybe. Little on the shorter side. So you know, the sniper target is still clear. But he's a big boy. He should have been buying last week. I know. He should have been prepping. He's been listening to all the streams and like trying to get used to the community and stuff. So I'm sure a lot of you guys like B-dubs and Dookie and Staples and stuff like this. Like I'm sure he already knows of you guys. So you're saying his legs are bigger than yours? Everyone's legs are bigger than mine. Everyone's legs. Let's see. It's so hard to time these comments so Tanner sees. Dude, I'm watching the whole chat the whole time. Well, right now I'm right now I'm moving on a little bit, but I'll look back and then I scroll and I see it. And if at the time that I'm looking over and see your comment, you've written it in 4 times, and you're like, why won't he see my comment? I did see your comment. Your comment sucks. You know, some of you guys post like a ticker symbol for like a month in a row, and you're like, he won't talk about this unknown $200 million company. It's like, yeah, because the amount of money just following the stream right now could buy that company out. If you're posting a company that we as a community could buy, stop posting it. That's not what I'm here to do. I've never seen Tanner's legs. Does he even have legs? Barely. I do sort of like a quarterly leg day. That day sucks. So I already did my Q1 legs. I've got another week at least until I even before it's even on the schedule. Show your legs on stream right now. You assume I have pants on. No, I do. I do have pants. Not pencil legs, bro. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to not fulfill your dream of who you thought I was. No. If we're in a smoky building together, you inhale too much smoke, the building's about to come down, you think I'm like Mr. Incredible, I'm about to pick you up and haul you out of there. You're like, this guy's got a mustache. He probably volunteer firefights. He'll get me out of this building. I won't. I can't help you. Okay? I'm immediately on the ground and I'm out of there with the women and children first. That's what I'm doing. And then I call up Marshall. I call up the bigger people and I say, you guys got to get in there. There's someone that collapsed on the ground. But everyone that needs to be on speed dial is on speed dial. So I promise you I can use the phone quick. Tanner's 100% crawling over those women and children. It's a speed. It's who can get to the exit first. And here's a little message to you. I'm going to win. Long-term Coinbase exec just joined the Tempo team. Tempo is the company that was started with Stripe and Paradigm. It's essentially trying to replace Ethereum. They're an additional L1. So we'll have to see if that actually becomes a big thing or not. SPY up 1.3%. Those poor souls are Tanner's fire exit liquidity. Okay. Tanner, did you see the plane crash? Way to Way to turn everything sour in this chat, brother. I did. There was a Colombian military plane or something with like 100 military personnel that ended up crashing. If that's the one you're talking about. I regret ever downloading Coinbase. Wish I just downloaded Robinhood and bought stock during COVID, but it got me into Robinhood at some... Wait, why do you regret downloading any app? They didn't force you to invest in things. Oh, an Air Canada plane crash. I did not see that. I saw the Colombian military thing. Air Canada flight colliding with Port Authority fire trucks at LaGuardia Airport. Oh, wow. Both pilots are dead. Dozens of passengers and 2 people in the truck were injured. Rough. Air Canada. Oh, I just watched the thing. I mean, I don't know how the truck is not like. Yeah. To be fair, though, it's very there's a lot of like cross-platform or cross runways. Like if you don't know the exact runway that they're coming in on, it does seem pretty confusing. Bad airport comms. Yeah, that's my understanding, right? Is like knowing which runway is which is the hard part, I guess. Why not maybe own a few of the good Canadian companies? I do. My second biggest company in my portfolio is Shopify. And then what are the other good Canadian companies? No, I'm just kidding. There are good Canadian companies, but I like tech names. And like, honestly, the tech capital of the world is America. So if you're focused on the space that I like, which is like innovation and, technology and software and hardware, like, yeah, like you guys are naming good names, but those don't fit into my portfolio. Enbridge, Brookfield, Constellation, I like those, but they don't belong in my portfolio. So the one good tech company that we have is Shopify, and I own a lot of it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for watching, but I'm going to go check out that video with Lex and Jensen Huang. And then you can expect an NVIDIA video later, and then a BMNR video maybe tomorrow. And then, I mean, depending on what Lex and Jensen have to say, maybe a NVIDIA video. But a lot more videos whenever Marshall steps in. I'm going to try to aim for a video a day, a live stream a day, a private live stream a day. And then maybe some other cool things I don't want to announce right now. But I got some plans. It'll be cool to get, 40 hours of additional manpower a week. That's going to be awesome. With a big token budget. He's on here to learn AI. We're going to figure it out. Next Monday, hope you meet the man, Marshall himself. Get excited. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for watching. Really do appreciate your time. But until next time, bye for now.